Today we are blessed, and you know I don't use that word insignificantly, but we're truly blessed to have an old school elder coming from the thick of the struggle and being able to convey some of his wisdom and knowledge on us. Brother Sam Greenley, native Chicago and University of Wisconsin, Madison, Bachelor of Science in Political Science, attended law school the following year but decided against law and transferred to the University of Chicago studying international relations from 1954 to 1957. He also informed me that he served in, you all that saw the movie understand the play on that word, served, in Korea for 2 years between 1952 and 1954. In 1957, he began a 7-year career with the United States Information Agency as a Foreign Services officer, serving Iraq, East Pakistan, Indonesia, and Greece. In all the areas that are where disputes are going on presently, including Korea. In 1958, he was awarded the Meritorious Service Award for bravery during the Baghdad Revolution. First and most well-known novel, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, was published in 1968. In 1973, The Spook Who Sat by the Door was released on film. Greenlee co-wrote the screenplay adaptation of the novel, has written numerous novels, stage plays, screenplays, poems, recently moved back to Chicago after several years of voluntary exile in Spain and West Africa, and is currently hosting a radio talk show program. I'm very proud to present to us Mr. Sam Greenley.
Also today, we have double blessings. Very talented, progressive young woman from right here in the Detroit area who is, leaps and bounds in the industry right now. Her name is Miss Katrina Red. It's a documentary called Red Films. She is currently hosting, organizing, and promoting for Showtime for what's called Black Cinema Cafe. If you've heard of that, you can go online, blackcinemacafe.com, redfilms.com. Katrina is definitely going to be a power in the film industry and coming out right out of the Detroit area. And I'll let you guys know a little bit about what she's doing, or a lot about what she's doing. You guys give her welcome, please.
Well, yesterday we had a premiere, Black Cinema Cafe. We do it every third Thursday of the month. We traveled in different locations, but we were able to solidify the St. Regis over the summer. St. Regis Hotel off of West Grand Boulevard is where we do the screenings. The screenings are free for the public. Normally it's a 21 and up affair because we may have a sponsor that is an alcohol beverage, and so you have to be 21 and over. But occasionally we have screenings where if you're under 21, you can attend them. I am interested in working with Showtime and doing more of those types of screenings with children, and hopefully establishing some workshops for children to participate in that are going to be our next filmmakers and screenwriters and producers. So I have several partners. Brian Heath, who's with ISP Group, his company is filmworks.com. If you go to that internet site, you will see a lot of seminars and some other things in terms of what he's doing. We're going to collaborate. Another one is with Hans Adibak, and that is Synoptic Studios, where we're going to actually take some scripts from writers, and it could be under 18 writers, it doesn't matter, and turn them into movies, movies, full features, or movie shorts. This is for distribution theatrically as well as outside of theatrical through Blockbuster or video sales or DVD sales, that type of thing. So I am a native Detroiter. I have gone to an assortment of schools, but I graduated from Henry Ford High School. I went on from there to go to Spelman College, and I came out in '94. My concentration is English, so really I'm a writer. That's what I do best. But my passion is film. It always has been. So I used to be a teacher for many years, and then I got into the film industry. So I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Let me ask a question. How many of you intend to go to college? Very good. How many of you have ever worked a 40-hour-a-week job? Well, I got news for you. You're going to be working more than 40 hours in college. If you take 15 credit hours, that means 15 hours in the classroom. They recommend, in order for you to graduate with a CC average, you have to study 3 hours for each credit hour. So 3 times 15 is what? Plus 15 is what? Okay? If you're on the assembly line at 4, you'd be well in the overtime. So if you think it's going to be a picnic, you're crazy. And I'm talking about a C average. If you're going to get a B average, you're talking about 80 to 90 hours a week. And that doesn't include recreation, playing bid whist, or any other stuff that most of the kids who flunk out do. You're talking about an 80-hour week, which is twice 40. So if you think it's a picnic, you're crazy. If you don't understand that when you go in, you're not going to survive. It's going to be the toughest job you ever had. It's unlikely that you'll ever have a job after you graduate that will require 60 to 80 hours on the job. So if you understand that getting an education is a lifetime job, the degree only indicates that you completed 4 years of study. It's got nothing whatever to do with education. You can come out of a college with a degree and high grades without having become educated. Education is up to you. You can't get it from the teacher, you can't get it from the professor. It has to come from within. I often tell students on the college campus, only 2 things worthwhile learning here: the way to the library and how to use it. And if you're going to become educated, you have to continue that. Nor do you need to go to college to become educated. J.A. Rogers never went to college. Dr. Henry Clark never went to college. Frederick Douglass never went to college. Booker T. Washington never went to college. All profoundly educated people. And you can't end once you get that degree. It's a continuum. You have to be studying for the entirety of your life to be a truly educated person. I am educated, so I'm telling you what I know. Now let's talk about the film. A little background on it. The idea for the book had been kicking around in my mind for a long time. When I was in Baghdad, the American puppet regime was overthrown by the commander of an armored brigade named Abdul Karim Qasim, who was one of the most trusted commanders in the army. He said that 21 years previously, when he was studying at Sandhurst, the military academy in Great Britain, that he was determined to get rid of that government. You see, at the end of the first European travel wars of 1914 to 1917, the British double-crossed the Iraqis. They had a white man who called himself Lawrence of Arabia, who organized the Iraqis into a guerrilla army to fight against the Ottoman Turks, who had been their masters for centuries. The British promised Iraqi independence at the end of the war. Instead, they took the son of a Saudi Arabian sheikh and set him on the throne. So the king wasn't even Iraqi. Nur Said, the prime minister, was an Iraqi. And he was every bit as vicious a dictator as Saddam Hussein. So the next time you hear those punks on television talking about how they want to free the Iraqis from a despot, remember that they backed Nur Said and they backed Saddam Hussein until he invaded Kuwait. Now, what intrigued me about Abdul Karim Qasim is the idea that he could pretend to be one thing on the outside while being something totally different on the inside for 21 years until he saw his opportunity and he moved. And that was the original inspiration for the protagonist in the Spook Who Sat by the Door. A man who was so pure that he could pretend to be anything he wanted to be while remaining who and what he was. When he was in Washington, he was an old-fashioned Uncle Tom. When he came back to Chicago, he became the nouveau Tom. Brooks Brothers was wearing proper English and the whole thing. He just switched one mask for another. All of us who have to survive among whites have to wear a mask. We can't afford to let them know who we really are. Your parents do that every day. Your grandparents have done it. And one day, if you work for whites, you're going to have to do it too. So, let's have comments or questions or whatever. You saw the film. Yes, sister.
Okay, in the film, like you said, he was wearing a mask. And was it pretty much like a military tactic? You can like hide the truth from the white people, so later on he can turn their work against them.
You summed it up. That's exactly what it was about. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you were in Korea during the time of the war. Did that mean you fought in the war, right?
No, brother misunderstood. I served during the Korean War. I made sure I didn't see any combat.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They assigned me to what was known as a Dixie Division.
Okay. So did the idea from the movie come from that? Or is there any type of truth to it? Did anything like that actually happen, like maybe in a small town or something of that nature?
Well, there was revolutionary activity throughout the 60s and the 70s.
Okay.
The Black Panther Party, the Republic of New Africa. There were several revolutionary groups who engaged in armed struggle against the government. They got stamped out fairly quickly. The reason is that they were engaged in on-the-job training. And when you're trying to learn by doing as a revolutionary, that's almost tantamount to suicide. You see, in those places where they've had successful revolutions, they've had rebellions prior to that. So when somebody wanted to start something new, they could go to Uncle John or Pierre or whatever, and they could learn from them in terms of their mistakes. We didn't have that then, but we got it now. Okay, we got it now. If anybody wanted to start a revolution now, there are people throughout Detroit and every urban territory in the United States that you could go to for advice on tactics. Yes, brother. I want to add one thing. The military tactics involved in both the film and the book, I drew on my experience as an infantry officer. So any military person will tell you that the tactics are right on the map. And at one time, the Spook Who Sat by the Door was required reading at the FBI Academy. Yes, brother, back there.
I had heard about the film before. I've seen it from one of my older friends, and obviously the film is before our generation, so I've heard that when it was first shown that it was in theaters and the showing really didn't last that long. And is that true, and if so, why?
FBI approached theater exhibitors throughout the country and in many cases convinced them to take the film out after only a few days. They finally got in touch with the president of United Artists and convinced him to take the film off the market. So the film was only out there for about 3.5 months. After that, I had the FBI, the IRS, CIA on my case. My phone was tapped. I was under surveillance. I can't get a job to this day teaching anywhere at a college or university, in spite of my credentials. But I got the film out there, and I'm here. The film was suppressed by the FBI. So much for the First Amendment.
I want to add something to that. We pulled an article from Ebony Magazine and gave it to our audience last night from December of 1972. And Sam was quoted in that article along with Gordon Parks Jr. and Sr. and some other filmmakers at that time. And what was interesting, it noted in the article that it was pulled, but it also noted that movies at that time that were released, like Shaft, was able to make $1 million within 1 week of premiering at 2 theaters in New York. And that movie went on and was allowed to do great things in terms of being able to stay in the box office. But the imagery of that film in terms of blacks in that film compared to Sam's film, big difference. And so the blaxploitation era is criticized for that, and people are under the impression that positive black films weren't being made at that time, but they were being made. And you see an example of what happened in his film. That was the problem during that era. So the Soul Fruits of today, The Best Man of today, and some of the other films that you see of blacks in a positive light, probably more realistic to your experiences, to all of our experiences, could not have been made then. It couldn't happen.
Yes.
Why did you end the movie as you did? It seemed like it was cut short. Was there a reason for that?
Because the community has to write the last chapter of that film. Yes.
I didn't see any.
You didn't see the film?
I stopped at the part where after they stole those guns, and they were in the car. I think it was. A few of us didn't see it in there. I might have seen it in there.
Well, then make them screen it for you again. Screen this film for these people who missed it. That's an order. Yes, it's exactly.
Well, there was a scene, right, where this guy's best friend was a part of the FBI. And in the scene,
Oh, he was a cop. That's okay.
he's a cop, right? In the scene, he has to kill him. But mostly, because he was your best friend, most of us would hesitate about it. And his best friend was a sellout. If he did not kill him then, he would have died, and the revolution would have continued.
Right. So he had to choose between his cause and his friend. That's a tough choice.
Do you think this still happens today?
Yeah, it's not as clean cut today as it was, say, 30 years ago. But certainly we probably have more people working for white folks against us than any time in our history. Yes.
What made you go about choosing the title of your book?
Well, spook is a euphemism for spy. Okay. And it's also a euphemism for black people. So it's a play on words. In addition to which, the ghost of the Black Revolution haunts white America. So it's a play on words on 3 different levels.
Okay, I was a little confused about a part in the film. And my classmates were trying to explain it to me, but I'm still a little confused about the guy who was black, but he looked Caucasian. And then when they robbed that bank, I think it was, they said 6 Caucasian males. And I don't understand how they pulled that off because I only knew it was one guy that looked Caucasian. I mean, they were trying to explain it to me, but
Yeah, well, it works a little bit better in the book than it does in the film. Problem is, we can only get one actor who's actually black and look white. So that's where the confusion comes in. The reason he chose him and allegedly other light-skinned brothers was so they couldn't connect the bank robbery to somebody black. When you see it on film, obviously 2 or 3 of them look like they were black. And that is confusing. Yes.
I'm just interested in hearing your background. What spawned you to leave law school and go into international affairs?
After briefing cases for a semester, I realized what ruined me is writing. You know, if there are any attorneys who can write well, I don't know them. You know, you got Scott Turow, you got John Grisham, and they can't write. You know, and so it was a simple choice. You know, I thought at one time I could be both an attorney and a writer, but it became obvious that I couldn't be both, so I just abandoned that. You know, I've never deviated from my desire to write. I was talking to the late Gwendolyn Brooks at one time, who was a close friend of mine, and she asked me, Sam, how old were you when you decided to be a writer? I said, about 8 years old when. She said, I was 12. I said, better late than never, man. Yeah.
There was a scene in the movie when Freeman and some of his friends were asking out how slaves used to be, or when they were free, how they said that they didn't want to go, they didn't want to leave because they didn't know how to live or act or eat. So even though they didn't have money to pay the slaves, they would stay. Is that true?
No, what he was doing was parodying the films that put that out. Obviously, that's absurd. Okay, yeah, there were some slaves who were afraid to leave the plantation, but they were a minuscule minority. Most of the freed slaves were delighted to get out from under the yoke. Many of them traveled to the north, others went to the west and sat down roots. They worked as pioneers. According to history books and according to the movies, all the pioneers were white. Okay, but I know better. My great-grandfather was a buffalo soldier. He fought the Comanche and the Apache out of Fort Sill, Arkansas. So I know that we were out there. My grandfather, who was a wrangler, the wrangler is different from a cowboy in that the wrangler takes care of the horses on a cattle drive. He pointed out that when Colonel Chisholm blazed the Chisholm Trail, he was the only white man on the drive. The rest were blacks, Indians, and Mexicans. Someone over here. Yes.
Are there any more of the books that you've written that you'd like to release on film in the near future?
Yes, my second novel I think would make an excellent film. It's set in Baghdad during the Revolution. But it doesn't put the United States, it's called Baghdad Blues.
Baghdad Blues.
Yeah, it doesn't put the United States in a very positive light. As a matter of fact, not much of what I write puts the United States in a very good light.
You mentioned that you had a desire to write when you were 8. What inspires you to write about the revolution?
Because there was a time when I thought seriously about doing it. That's why the book is so well detailed. When I came back briefly to Chicago in 1965, I was offered a job to work with every street gang in Chicago. And I recognized that street gangs were a quasi-military unit and could be transformed into a guerrilla army overnight. The reason I decided to write the book rather than do it is I realized that unless a revolution took on a national basis, simultaneously throughout the country, it would be easy to quarantine it in Chicago and wipe it out. So I decided to write the book. And the book is a handbook for revolution. If you want to learn organize a revolution, just study the Spook Who Sat by the book. So I decided that, you see, the White Rebellion jumped off at that time. And I recognize that that was only the first of a series of rebellions. What's the difference between a rebel and a revolutionary? Revolution is a rebel who wins. That's the difference. Yes.
I wanted to know if you were banned from making films, and if not, would you consider making a modernistic rendition of the movie, perhaps for a younger audience?
I would update it. It would be absurd. You know, I mean, for one thing, they've got dozens of black people in all these institutions now. For instance, the Spooks are set to work on in undermining governments in Africa and the Caribbean. Oddly enough, though, they don't trust them. You see, they haven't the slightest idea of how loyal a sellout Negro is. They feel that he might join the other side, so they keep him pretty much contained. No, I would do it as a period piece set in the same time. And yes, I've been banned from making movies.
When you say they don't trust him, you mean the U.S. government doesn't
Yeah.
trust him?
They think their loyalty might be divided between black Africans they're supposed to be working against and their loyalty towards their white masters. I don't think I have to worry about it. All you got to do is look at Colin Powell.
Clarence.
You know, and, you know, his first last loyalty is towards white people. Yes.
Okay, I got a question for the lady.
Can you speak up, please?
I got a question for the lady and also you.
Okay.
Can you explain more about the television series and the process that we would have to go through to get our writings in?
Yes, you can contact Showtime.com and see what opportunities they have for your age group. They do have writing contests where they give out 1,000, 2,000 to the winners, and will air your movie short, that type of thing, on their channel at certain times. Also, another channel that you should be aware of is IFP, Independent Film Channel. They do a lot of grants and things like that for writers for movie shorts. Mostly you're talking about movie shorts, but you can look up possibly some features. Also through the ABFF, which is our film festival. It was previously called the Acapulco Black Film Festival. Now it's the American Black Film Festival that takes place in South Beach, Miami. There isn't an age limit to that. I would seriously suggest that if you are interested in film and possibly becoming a filmmaker or a writer or producer, there's so many other occupations within film other than director. You should look into that. But maybe you can go with your parents to South Beach in June and see some great independent films before they even come out the gate. These films, sometimes they get movie deals and sometimes they go straight to distribution through Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, something like that, or are sold independently by the filmmaker. So I definitely suggest if you're interested in film, you start attending some film festivals. In Detroit, you can go to filmworks.com. That is the site I told you about earlier that has some opportunities for your age group for local City of Detroit residents. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Okay, what inspired you to start writing?
Well, my grandparents used to both read and tell us stories, my brother and I, as a child. And I taught myself how to read when I was about 4 years old. So I thought it was marvelous that somebody could sit down and write these tales that I was reading. And I thought I'd like to do that myself once I got older. So I wrote all the time. I was in grammar school. I remember when I was in 5th grade, and we produced a weekly newspaper called the Makash Flash, and I was the editor of that paper. I wrote plays, I wrote poetry, I wrote short fiction all through high school, college. During the time I was in the Army, during the time I was in the Foreign Service. So when I finally quit the Foreign Service in Greece and sat down on the island of Mykonos, I was a full-time writer from the day I sat down at the typewriter. I've never looked back. It's, I love it. It's the best job I've ever had. That's the way I regard it. You know, it's not an avocation, it's not a hobby, it's a job. And if you're going to be a filmmaker, you got to regard that as a job too. I would suggest that the way to start is to get yourself a still camera to develop your photographic eye, because motion pictures are simply a bunch of stills that run through the camera at a certain speed. That's why the people move. But each one of those shots is on a 35mm frame, just like a still camera. And once you develop your eye with a still camera, then move on to video. But don't start at video. Start with the stills. You know, get one of these throwaway cameras, you know, that you turn in and get the film back. You know, study those films so that you know about angles, about close-ups, about focus, and all the rest of it. And once you become confident in using a still camera, go down to the local pawn shop, get yourself a video camera, start shooting. Okay? So that way you learn how to tell a story with film. All right? So when you get to the point where you write it down, you know what's going to work on film and what doesn't work on film. So you start out with the visuals and then work back to the printed, written word. Okay? Yes.
Were some of your books and films based on your personal experience?
All of them. In fact, I decided that since all of my work was autobiographical, I might as well sit down and write the real truth, because I have to tone the thing down. I've done so many things that if I put those into a fictional character, nobody would believe it. You know, and there are people who will doubt what I've done in my life when they read my autobiography. But I've been an achiever all my life. And I've done a whole lot of things, and everything I do well, because that was instilled in me by my family. If you're going to shine shoes, be the best shoe shine boy on the block. Okay? That was my grandmother's motto, my family's motto. I was raised in working class comfort. I didn't come out of a middle class professional family. I was the first person in my family to attain a college degree. But they were hard-working, upperly mobile people who passed their work ethic across to me. So when I sat down to write, I approached it as a job rather than a hobby or an avocation. So yes, my poetry, my fiction, my stage plays, all of it's got Sam Greenley in it. And characters are usually based on people I know. Yes, ma'am?
I want to know, what was your purpose for writing Spook Who Sat?
As I said, to show the revolutionaries how to do it. To offer some kind of inspiration for us as a people. Most of the movies that have been made about us, rather than by us, have either shown us as negative buffoons or as angelic characters, like the films that Sidney Poitier played. I wanted to show black people as three-dimensional human beings, independent of white America. We've been here for a long, long time. And we can't change our skin colors, nor have we changed our cultural ways. Much of our culture is eclectic. Eclectic means to choose. And we as a people have chosen from our surroundings, from Native Americans, from white Americans, and put that on the foundation of the mixture of African cultures from which we derive, to create a culture that is neither African nor American, but is unique to us as a people. And you'd be surprised if you ever went abroad how much respect we derive as black people born on these shores. Being vilified and looked down on by whites doesn't prepare you for anywhere you go as an African American, Africa, Asia, Europe, they look on you with respect. Even if they don't like niggas, they still respect us for who and what we are, for what we've done historically. We are a powerful people. Yes.
Do you think that the government is abandoning you because because you might be a threat to the African community and educational wise? As in, you might be a threat to us, like developing our minds to make us better people?
From their point of view, yeah, I'm a threat. But from mine, no. As far as white folks are concerned, I'm dangerous. And intend to be. But as far as you're concerned, I don't think I'll present any danger. You know, if I shake up your head and make you think, I'm doing you a favor. Yeah.
To follow on her question, do you think that maybe they think that you discovered something that they didn't want you to, or you're onto something?
Yeah, that's a factor, but look, on paper, I should have been an early Colin Powell. All right? I was raised in two churches, Greater Bethesda Baptist Church and a congregational church that I went to Sunday school with. I was in the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, high school ROTC, college ROTC, went to 2 white universities. I should be the most brainwashed Negro on the planet. Except I'm not. And that horrifies me. You know, how did this nigga get away? You know, we did everything to train him to be loyal and timid, and he turned against us. So there's an emotional factor there. You know, they don't worry about Colin Powell. They know they got him. They've had his nose since he was a child. But how did I go through all of this brainwashing process and come out at the end blacker than when I went in? That scares me.
Could you speak on the dumbing down effect that's going on in America, or that I perceive is going on in America, where just being a critical thinker it's always been a part of American history, but it's almost in an influx right now where critical thinking is, you know, it's basically gone, you know. So have you perceived that, or can you speak to how you perceived it over the generations, or even from your internal position in the government?
Well, everybody is getting dumb. It's not just us. Okay. And the primary factor in turning people into dummies is the media, television and motion pictures. Okay. I mean, by their own admission, they make movies for teenagers. All right? For retarded teenagers. And if your primary source of information is from the media, you're being lied to and talked down to as children. Not just as black people, but white people too. Listen to Rumsfeld. Listen to Cheney. Listen to Bush. He's talking to children. Only a child could swallow whole the specious arguments that they put forth. I was so embarrassed looking at Colin Powell squirm putting out that empty rhetoric that I turned off the television. Okay? And that Frenchman went right upside his head. But even with the media offering no counter arguments, none whatever, they've been supporting Bush as if they are a personal part of his public relations community. Even with no opposition, the American populace is still skeptical. 87% say don't go without allies. A growing number say don't go at all. So that's at least some hope. Okay, does anybody know about the Pavlov experiment? Pavlov was a Russian biologist under the Stalinist regime. And he set out to prove that you could brainwash an entire population by experimenting with dogs. Okay, he called it conditioned reflex. And what he did was he would ring a bell when it was time to feed the dogs. And once they heard the bell and were conditioned to expect food when the bell rang, they would begin salivating and becoming really excited. Then he started running game. Sometimes the bell would ring and the food would be there. Sometimes it wouldn't be there. And he saw that the dogs still reacted to that bell. Except, no matter how many dogs he used or what breeds, there was always a minority who got hip to the scam. They figured out that the food didn't always come with the bell. And instead of jumping up, wagging their tails and getting excited, they sat, laid down over in the corner until they smelled the food, the real food. So, as Lincoln said, you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. And if you don't want to be fooled, then you got to turn off that television sometime. Okay? If you watch the television more than 12 hours a week, you're in trouble. There's not anything on there worth looking at 12 hours a week.
I'd like to ask a couple questions, if I may, one each.
Okay,
Did
can
you
I
want-
add to that?
Sure,
Also,
absolutely.
one of the things I'll challenge you all to do too, if you really want to see more in depth of what he's talking about, when you're watching television the next time, keep it on mute and just look at the images. And you can change from channel to channel and see the same images, the same type of message that's trying to be conveyed. This is in all of the commercial ads, in all of the videos. It's like it's all one same thing. So do that. Watch television on mute and just look at what you're seeing. Look at the imagery. Look at the colors. Look at the movements. All of it is very brainwashing, as well as the music, the words in the music. The beats might be nice, but listen to the lyrics. Concentrate on what they're saying. And then you might be appalled and shocked and offended. And then you'll be like the dogs waiting to smell the food, and you'll wait until you hear something or see something that is of substance before you purchase it or spend your time watching it or even letting it sink into your psyche.
Wasn't there a transformative process that occurred with the Blackstone Rangers in Chicago? Did they become El Rukin?
No, yes, they did. Right. And the reason they busted them is they were dealing dope. But they kept rock out of Chicago. The rock epidemic didn't hit Chicago until years after it was in on the east and west coast. And since the police controlled the cocaine traffic, Jeff Ford, who was the head of El Rukin, had to go. So he's in prison now, and you can buy rock on any street corner in the ghetto.
Bobby Kimzak, before you ask, can you explain the question that you just asked? Because I think that the masses in here might be in the dark about exactly what you're talking about.
It's just basically, because my memory gets fogged. I'm not even as clear as Bob was saying. We had a conversation about 10, 15 years ago for a while, and he remembered it. It was just amazing to me. But there's a street gang in Chicago called the Blackstone Rangers, and he was talking about transforming street gangs, and they became El Rukin, but I don't recall all of the circumstances. So my question was for him to flesh out that process and how the Blackstone Rangers became El Rukin. Because Jim Brown on the West Coast had been working with the Bloods and the Crips to bring about some transformative situation.
I did some work with the Rangers. The Rangers were a street gang. Blackstone is a street in Woodlawn, the community I grew up in and still live in. In fact, Blackstone is only 2 blocks away from where I live now. They were a street gang who took on political attitudes. For instance, the cops tried to set them against the Black Panthers. They would go for it. They sat down with the Panthers and exchanged information and knowledge. When King was killed, a riot broke out on the west side ghetto, and they started burning down the community. But on the south side, the Blackstone Rangers went out of the streets and said, not here. You're not going to burn down this part of town. We hip to the way you feel about King, to burn down your own neighborhood doesn't make any sense. In addition to which, in the presidential election, they told the people not to vote. Once they became political, they had to go. Now, Jeff bought a former movie house with his drug money, and then transformed the Blackstone Rangers into a religious sect that he called El Ruki, open under the guise of a separation of church and state. He might be free from police harassment, but he wasn't. And he's doing time now, and he's never gonna get out of prison.
Okay, were you finished? Okay, the question I wanted to ask Sister Katrina is about the process of supporting black cinema. Isn't it true that when a film first comes out, because I was fortunate when the Spook first came out, by then I knew you had to dash out and see them immediately, just like Putney, Swope, and some of the others. You had to dash out and see them because they'd be gone. So don't you have to go like the first week, or because this is what they base the demographics on, and if you don't get out there the first week, then this library get pulled.
Yes, we took a film called 1 Week, which won the Acapulco Black Film Festival as a feature in '97, and that film was about black relationships, and more so the issue was HIV in our community, infecting our community, and we released it theatrically about 6 or 7 months ago. I went to New York for the premiere to help my brothers and sisters there, and it was really a first experience for me in terms of being on that end of releasing a film, and some of the things that theaters do to African American filmmakers. They moved our film from a 250-seat theater to a 150-seat theater without informing us. And on Friday when it opened, of course it sold out immediately. And we thought, oh great, a great response to the film. Then the second show sold out immediately, and we said, wait a minute, something is just not right with this. And Jeff Friday, who is the president of Black Cinema Cafe, co-owner of Black Cinema Cafe with Reggie Scott, went inside of the theater to talk to the management to see what was going on, and then that's when he discovered the film had been moved without informing us. Well, the problem with that is the people who went to go see the movie, and let's say it was sold out, well, you may or may not get those people to come back and support the film again. They were there that day to see that film, so they went into another theater and saw something else, and maybe they returned, maybe they didn't. In all, it affects the numbers that you receive opening weekend. This is why you hear on Entertainment Tonight, Daredevil made $50 million opening weekend, and there's so much concentration on how much money a film makes opening weekend, because it does determine how long that film will have in terms of its life longevity in the theaters. And then that's important in the end, because that'll determine how successful that film will be after it leaves theatrical. Most of the money for films are made, in terms of the majority of the money, are made after theatrical, not during, because the theaters or the movie companies spend so much money on promoting and marketing a film. So yes, it is important when you see a film like Antoine Fisher to go see it immediately within the first weekend, because that'll determine how many weeks it'll last in the box office and then how well it'll do afterwards. However, there is, for instance, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. That movie was in the box office for 6 months, and it's all about who you know, and again, white Hollywood.
Right.
I found out one of the producers for that film was Tom Hanks' wife. So I think that had something to do with that movie being in theaters that long, because certainly it wasn't sold out every weekend.
Right.
It may have had numbers, and pretty decent numbers, but it wasn't like on the level of opening weekend for that film. And so I finally saw it through DVD, and again, was shocked because it didn't move me. It was a film about, a Greek wedding and Greek people, but for that film to have been able to last in the theater for 6 months shows the type of racism and discrimination when it comes to black filmmakers, even still to 2003. And so the film we released 1 week, it made about 80,000 in New York, and then we released it in Atlanta, and it flopped in Atlanta. It only made something like 15,000, which was surprising to me with how many black colleges are there and how many black people were there. And then also in DC, it made about 40,000, and in Detroit, it made about 50 or 40,000, something like that. So we placed second or third.
How they do in Chicago? That's what I saw.
Chicago, the people who made the film, Kenny
Chicago.
Young, and they're from Chicago. I think Chicago was the first city. I think it did the best in Chicago, maybe 80, 90, but it didn't go over 100,000. I know they're coming out the gate with another film, but right now it's in Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, so please go and rent it. That's very important.
It's a fine film.
It's a very good film. But see, again, the problem I think with that film is it didn't have any name actors that blacks could identify with. We were in the theaters at the Star Southfield in Detroit. We really expected higher numbers for Michigan because we have two of the largest, highest grossing theaters in the country in our state, and that is Great Lakes Crossing and the Star Southfield. They pull more numbers than any other theater nationally. Okay, so that is phenomenal in terms of the type of money those theaters are making. And it says a lot about our state in terms of moviegoers, being movie supporters. So I really expected the film to do much better here and was a bit disappointed. But one of the things I noted when we were handing out the flyers and promotional materials, blacks would ask us, who's in the film? Is Wesley Snipes in? Is Ice Cube in? They needed to see somebody like that in order to somehow in their psyche say, okay, this is something that I need to see because Wesley Snipes is in this film. So because the film had some unknown actors, a lot of blacks were reluctant to go and see it. And it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm here to see the one that Samuel L. Jackson was in at the time. I can't remember, which was a good film. I saw that was in the theater at the same time. But they were like, oh, I'm here to see that. And, I'll see your film maybe Sunday, afternoon. We'll see. Or next week. Well, it may not be in theaters next week. So, yeah, you definitely have to support them. And I say, research your films. Definitely, I don't think you should just go and see a film just because it's a black film. There are some films that you may not want to see because of the imagery and what have you. But at the same time, don't wait to go and see them. See them immediately, because without your support, they can't continue to make better films.
What I wanted to ask is, either of you can address it. And my pet peeve, one of my big pet peeves is the lack of imagery, the lack of imagination. Movies that we make that dare you to fantasize, that dare you to, imagine. We've got this generic sort of recipe. We take something like Fast and Furious and we turn it into black version biker boys. We don't push ourselves as writers, as filmmakers, to come out with things that push you to, you don't see any quote-unquote black Star Wars. that was all from his imagination. We don't push ourselves in that direction to come out with concepts that take you to the next level. Not like to get rid of.
I don't think that's necessarily true. They're showing me some of your screenplays, you certainly doing that.
Yeah.
And
That's my
I think it's a safe assumption that there are
Huddling brothers.
several score other brothers and sisters who have those kinds of scripts that they can't get done. The problem is Hollywood makes mindless films for everybody. Not just about racial discrimination when they reject a dynamite black script. Okay, they don't do anything worthwhile except by accident. So you got a double whammy. First of all, you got a black film with black characters who's saying something meaningful. All of those work against you when you're working with Hollywood. The only way we can make the kind of films we want to make is to do it the way I did with the Spook Who Sat by the door. 8 out of every $10 that went into making that film came from the black community. We went to the community for the money. Hollywood wasn't going to do it. I formed a partnership with Ivan Dixon in 1970. He spent 2 years trying to get one of the 6 major studios to do it. I told him up front, I said, they're not going to do this, man. We got to do it ourselves. So while he was doing that, I drew up a limited partnership agreement with a young white man that I had gone to the University of Chicago with, who had an MBA and the experience. And so when Ivan finally said, well, hey man, you're right, let's do it. I said, here it is, let's go. Even that's not enough. We have to finance, produce, direct, write, and distribute the film. Okay? That's why this sister's so significant. She's on the most crucial portion of filmmaking. Because if the film doesn't make money, you can't go on to the next one. That's what it's all about.
I wanted to respond to that. You mentioned Biker Boys. The director of Biker Boys is Reggie Blythewood. Reggie Blythewood made a film called Dancing in September that he tried to get released theatrically for a year or so, shopping the script around. Well, no script. It had already been filmed, so he had his cans of film. He went to Paramount, he went to United Artists, he went to DreamWorks, he went to all of these white distributors, okay, to see if they'll pick up the film. They did things like this. This is how it works. You take your film to them. It's a boardroom of people, maybe 2 blacks out of a room of 10. They say, okay, put your film in. We want to see reel number 1 and 6, right? So forget 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is the bulk of the movie, right? They're busy. These people, they don't have time. Put 1 and 6 in, we'll look at it. So they put it in, they're watching the film. This is what went down. He had a couple of people that were in that meeting come back and tell him what happened. And I think in some cases he had a hidden camera on somebody, you know, to see what's really going on in the room when they're watching these black movies. You had people talking on their cell phone. You had some other people reading books. You had some people sleeping, just having separate conversations. And the black people that were in the room were paying attention to the film and were fully engaged and laughing and entertained and loved the movie, Dancing for September. Well, by the end of the meeting, you know, 2 to 10, two blacks out of 10, they were outvoted. So the movie wasn't picked up. And so he went from studio up to studio up to studio trying to get this film to be picked up. Finally, he went to HBO. HBO picked the film up. It premiered on HBO. This was sometime last year. One of the members from Soul Food was in that, Terry, I can't remember her last name. Nicole Ari Parker. Her character is Terry. Her name is Nicole Ari Parker. She's the light-complected sister that plays on Soul Food. She was in Dancing for September. Anyway, the film did great. People loved it. It stayed on HBO maybe like a month or so. But the question was, why couldn't that film have been released theatrically? Well, he tried to get it released theatrically. And one of their biggest concerns at the time was, who wants to see a movie about black love relationships? I mean, you know, That's not interesting. That's not gonna sell tickets. So then, is it art or is it finance? And they're interested at the time of what's gonna draw the most in-box dollar, in their opinion. They're not aware, but in their opinion. So then movies like Love Jones comes out, Poetic Justice, Soul Food. There's money to be made here. Okay, let's make some more. What do we see? How Stella Got Her Groove Back, Best Man, and so on and so forth. You start seeing a string of movies along that line because they have figured, oh, this makes money, this is what blacks want to see, this is what we'll show. So it's like a number game with them. If it makes money, then they'll show it. So now Reggie Blythewood is good enough to be released theatrically with Biker Boys, which is a good film. I saw the film because it talks about the irresponsibility of young over and people want to see them, i.e. Drumline, which is like, it is the story of Dallas Austin, his story of being in college and being in the band and that sort of thing. That crossed over. That's very important because by doing that, then black filmmakers are able to make some money, to make some more films and tell some untold stories like Deacons for Defense. Deacons for Defense is a true story about a black militia group that hardly anyone has ever heard of, and I hadn't heard of them either, down in Bogalusa, Louisiana, that were similar to the Black Panthers. And these people said, you know what, we're not going to take our homes being burned, our black people being snatched up literally off the streets. We find them in barns, hung or shot or whatever. We're going to take arms and we're going to protect our community. And the police aren't doing it, the mayor's not doing it, the governor's not doing it. We're down here by ourselves. Martin Luther King, those people are in Atlanta or wherever they are, Alabama, doing their thing. We're here and we're going to protect ourselves. And they did that. That's what that film is all about. That's on Showtime currently. That's what we premiered. Bill Duke is the director of that movie. Starring was Forrest Whitaker and Ozzie Davis. So, you know, we need to make money first so we can tell a lot of untold stories that still haven't been told. About black inventors, all types of stories that we need to tell and get on screen because it's a teaching tool as well as an entertainment tool. That's the question. Are films supposed to just be entertaining, or are they supposed to educate at the same time? That's the question. Art and politics. Where does it end? Where does it start? So,
Well, it's
that's a
possible
good question.
to do both.
Right, edutain.
Edutainment.
Okay, and the choice is that of the filmmaker.
Right.
As I pointed out, Hollywood seldom produces a film that's anything except mindless entertainment. Yeah.
I have a question for this sister over there. Why, in your opinion, why do you think 8 Mile made so much money more than Brown Sugar, in your opinion?
Because of Marshall Mathers. Because it's the first white boy to tap into our industry, our market of hip hop. And so they're determined to raise him on a pedestal and make sure that he succeeds and makes money. Right now, the film 8 Mile is just now being released in Europe. So they're going to milk Europe out of another $100 million or so. And imagine how well the film is going to do once it's released after theatrical and the DVD sales. So I had a big problem with that movie. I have some friends that worked on that movie, some friends who spoke on the panel last night who worked on that movie. I had a problem with the imagery, again, in terms of how Detroit is perceived. They chose some of the worst location sites, and all of that was done to show, I guess, how he suffered and how he was struggling. But he wasn't from Detroit. He was from Ferndale or wherever. So show their ghettos, you understand? And if he was aspiring to be something and going to these hip hop clubs in Detroit, practicing, and that was in fact a true story, if it was, surely he saw some areas like Sherwood or Palmer or some other neighborhood districts or areas or somewhere downtown that was what he aspired to be, inspired to live, and aspired to eat, you know, at nice restaurants. Come on, I just had a really huge problem. So it did two things. It helped his imagery in terms of hip hop, and is helping him cross over. And then secondly, it put down Detroit and blacks. I mean, this city is run by Detroit. No other city, in my opinion, and from friends that I've talked to that have lived in other places, is like Detroit. Detroit is very unique in terms of how black we are, in terms of how much control we have in this city. No other city is like Detroit. From its hospitals to its school system to its police station to its city government, no other city is like Detroit. We have so much power and also so much money in Detroit. A lot of people aren't aware of that. When artists want to sell their works, Detroit is where they come first. Okay, so there's a lot of money in the city, a lot of power in the city, and it just did a number just to put down the city again, and to degrade blacks again, in my opinion. So I had a big problem with 8 Mile and a big problem with Marshall Mathers for making that film.
I want to add a footnote. When the United Artists executives sat down and saw the final cut of the Spook Who Sat and do it, I can guarantee you nobody went to sleep. We ran game on it. We ran out of money. And so we cut the action sequences together. Left out all the politics and the rest of it. And they thought they had a blaxploitation film on their hands. And they were outraged when they saw what it was. And I told them, I said, wait a minute. You asked for 6 copies of the script. Don't blame me if nobody in here can read.
That's right.
So you got a contract, you got to put the thing out. Here it is, put it out.
That's right.
And nothing upsets a white man anything more than to find out somebody black is outsmarted.
That's right.
You know that's right.
You know. I mean, and it's not difficult to do. You know, white folks are dumb.
But they're dangerous.
I mean, George Bush ain't faking.
I wanted to add to that. You mentioned Star Wars. Lucas, that's not an original concept. He stole that concept from Akira Kurosawa in some of his films. That's a Japanese filmmaker. So, exactly. So we look at some of their films and we think, oh, that's a great film. All they did was do a little research on foreign films or watch somebody else's film and just reinvented that film. And changed the characters, changed the setting, but it's the same exact movie. It's not original. So, you know,
But it does challenge you to imagine, and that was the point. Maybe a bad choice of movies, but that's my point. It challenges you to imagine.
Yes.
I wanted to ask a question. This conflict that's going on between Iraq and the United States, do you think that if we happen to go to war, that it can spark something in black people to come together at this time of vulnerability in the U.S. government so we can start another revolution?
No. You remember how many American flags you saw throughout the hood after 9/11? Okay, there's your answer right there.
Most of them belong to
I mean,
Arabs.
we are loyal to this nation to the point of stupidity.
right.
I mean, black troops are not going to hesitate for a minute to shoot the Iraqis when they go over there. We got more in common with the Iraqis than we do with white folks. But that's part of the brainwashing process.
Brainwash. You are American.
Yes.
You mentioned that you were banned from making movies. I would love to hear the reason that they gave you why you couldn't make another movie and what's happening now to reverse it.
They don't have to give no reasons, man. You know, they just say no. When you're in a position of power, you don't have to explain. You don't have to apologize.
There it is. Power concedes
And,
nothing.
as I said before, the only reason the Spook Who Sat got made is we circumvented the power structure. And if I ever make another movie, I'm going to have to do it that way. It's never occurred to me that somebody's going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Sam, I love the Spook Who Sat by the door, what you got in the trunk? It's not going to happen. You know, I've been talking to Tim Reed about getting Spook into Blockbuster. In addition to which, excuse me. In addition to which, he's now setting up a distribution company. So I might be able to collaborate with him on some films in the future. At least we're now seeing how well we can work together.
So do you have a copy with you?
Yeah,
Okay, I would like to
I'm
have.
selling them for $20.
He said I'm gonna have it.
I want to add to what you just said, Hollywood blackout or white lash, that is very real. Recently I was, because I have my own issues with Wesley Snipes, some of the comments and statements he's made publicly about his opinion of black women and what have you. But anyway, he started his own production company, film company, and made a film, or was in the process of making a film. I'm not exactly sure, because I just found this out. I'll have to do some more research on the details. But anyway, making a film about Dr. Ben, and Hollywood found this out, and my information or resources has told me that he's been blacklisted or whitelisted in terms of being banned from Hollywood and making any films or starring in any film. That's why you haven't seen or heard from Wesley Snipes in a while, because of this. And so I'm going to do some research and find out more details on how true that is, and that might be a part of our next discussion at the next Black Cinema. But white lash and blackouts are very real when you're a filmmaker or a writer like Sam Greenley. They just do not want the truth to come out, or someone like Sam Greenley to have power or effect over our people. I think the greatest fear is what they witnessed in the film. That is the fear. That black people will actually do something like that. What if that really did happen? They're extremely afraid. A movie called Bowling for Columbine talked about white fear. And he had it was an independent film, and he had a meeting with, what's the guy who represents the gun? He's an actor, Charleston. Hester. He met with him, and he brought a picture with him of a little girl who was killed in a classroom, I think a kindergarten classroom. Said, you know, could you really continue to support your stance on guns and this and that and the other? And he just choked up, and he got up, and he said, this interview is over. And he walked out, and then the filmmaker left the picture they were in his patio or something, and he left it on the patio, and they just did a pan out, and Charleston was walking away, get out of here, get off my property, and he had the little girl's picture there. So every now and then you'll get a filmmaker making movies about that, and this guy is white. Well, his film could only be released in a theater like the Maple or the Main Art, not something like the Star or, you know, Great Lakes Crossing, see? So, again, it's the message. That's a white filmmaker, but the message was telling the truth about white fear and some of the other things. White militia groups. It was a really powerful film called Bowling for Columbine. I recommend that you all get a copy of that and show that to your students. But, yeah, white lash and Hollywood blackout is real.
Real quick, I just wanted to interject, because I wanted to introduce our panel. Our founder and director of shule, W.E.B, DuBois Academy, Imani Humphrey, and our building administrator and I guess I'm not seeing it as Imani's daughter. She's been here forever also, so they will all just come to the phone.
My question is for Mrs. Red and Mr. Greenley. What advice do you have to give to today's youth living in today's society?
Get an education. My grandmother used to say, get an education, boy. That's the only thing the white folks can't take away from you. Put that up on your wall. Education is the only thing they cannot steal.
Freeman
They
said
took
that.
everything I had. My furniture, wardrobe, record collection, art collection, book collection. Okay, I couldn't keep up the storage charges. Gone. They sold everything I had for $500. And I was angry for a couple of days, and then I realized, hey, I'm traveling light. You know, I realized that you don't own possessions, possessions own you. And now I can get on the road in less than 2 hours. Okay? I don't even have to pack manuscripts anymore. They're on diskette. So I can move anywhere in the world, anytime I want to, within 2 hours. And there might be times when I have to get out of Dodge that hurt. Okay? So, somewhere along the line, you got to decide how important material comfort is, and whether or not the way you think and what you believe is more important. Okay? I'm broke. I get $552 from the government as a pension, $34 in food stamps. I'm in a Section 8 tiny apartment. The rest of it I do by selling these tapes. Okay? But am I worried about that? No. Why? Because I have the support and affection of my community. I don't have to apologize to nobody for what I've done. With no attempt at false modesty, I have become a legend in my time. Now, there are powerful black people who despise me, and the feeling is mutual. But the community at large admires what I've done and admires me because of what I've done. There's no amount of money that can buy that kind of respect. So you got to choose. You got to choose. Either you can do what the white folks want you to do, or you can earn the respect of your community. Actually, you're going to have to do both. Give them what they want, give us what we need. So you've got to become a double agent if you're going to function. After all, chances are you will have to work for white people. And you can't go in there with an attitude because they will get rid of you. They will get rid of you. You've got to act. You've got to pretend to be what it is they want. And then when you go home, you take off your Gucci and Poochie, you put on your dashiki, and you go to work. That's your real job in the hood. What you do downtown is how you earn your bread and butter. So you really don't have to make a choice. And those people who tell you you do are lying. They made a conscious choice to sell out. But others of us never have and never will. And it's up to you which way you're going to go.
I agree with Sam on that. My main thing would be to never forget who you are, because when you do that is when you get hurt and when you fall on your face financially, socially, spiritually. Your ethnic background is very important, and you need to learn it and know it well and be proud of who you are. Trust and love other black people. There's so many of us that will say, oh, I don't want to do business with those people over there. I'd rather do business with this person over here. And just self-hate, really. I see so much of it. I would recommend that if you don't graduate from one, that you at least attend one for a year or two in terms of the HBCU. My experiences prior to going to Spelman and after. Prior, I would say I had a good background and influence in my history and who I am, but certainly after, in terms of the type of people I met, was exposed to, and experiences I had there, changed my life completely. And then I spoke with some friends who didn't opt for that option. They went to a U of M or they went to Michigan State. And there's something missing there. They may have their degree and they may have their nice job or whatever, but they're missing something else, and they regret that decision. Some went on to HBCUs for law school like Howard University Law School or some graduate studies or Morehouse Medical School. But they certainly regretted having not gone or experienced, at least for a year, whatever, at HBCU. So I would suggest that to every young person. And do not be afraid of math. Learn it and learn it well. There is no more retired from a job. That's out, that's over with. You're going to probably, as Sam said, be a double agent. You're going to have multiple jobs and need to know how to do a multitude of things. If you work for someone, that's fine, but you should also be an entrepreneur and have your own business on the side, whatever, but just make sure you have something. I worked for a company for 9 years, and I was their director over their school. And but I had my own company too. And so when times hit hard for America and they start doing all these massive layoffs, I was laid off from this company. It was the first time I'd ever been laid off from any employer. But I had my own company, so it was just like, oh, okay, great. You know, you freed me up. Now I can do what I really want to do. And then I got a couple of offers like immediately, like within that same day. The word had went out, and I think my supervisor at that time had sent out my resume to some people. And I had some pretty lucrative offers that were very tempting. But I said, you know what, this is not what I want to do. I've been wanting to, like half my foot was in the door of corporate and the other half was outside the door. And I said, you know, I'm going to step out. I'm going to take a leap out on faith. I think I can do this full time, and that's what I'm going to do. So I did that, and that was back in October of 2002. And I haven't looked back. And it's been getting even better every time. I mean, almost every week, some new opportunity has popped up, and someone's calling me to do something. So have faith, follow your heart, learn about yourself, and learn math so that you can be smart and savvy like they're doing and create some accounts and have some mutual funds or whatever, because it really does take money in some cases to do what you're trying to do, especially as a filmmaker. So if you don't know math very well, maybe you might get with someone who does. I don't know.
This question is for either one of y'all. How do y'all feel about filmmakers who typecast African Americans? Example, Martin Lawrence, Chris Rock, who always, wherever movies they in, always play dumb roles or silly roles. Like, example, Black Knight. That movie was dumb. I really the way he played that character. And now, National Security, that movie was a flop. I was mad going to start getting wasting my $8.50 for Martin Lawrence. That's stupid. How do you feel about filmmakers who continue to typecast African American actors as what you call silly roles or whatever? For either one of y'all.
I consider actors who do that as hoes.
Right.
Hoes, you know how the hoe is.
They don't in the broader sense, they don't.
Basically, they are doing that for money. They are selling themselves out for money. Someone made him an offer, and he said, okay. I don't think Martin Lawrence is an idiot. I'm sure he's very well aware of how simple that film is and how ignorant that role is, and in some cases convince themselves, oh, well, I'm doing it all for the muse, you know, for comedy, because I'm a comedian.
If you confronted him, he would simply say, how much money you got?
Exactly.
Oh, really?
Right.
That's his defense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's like a prostitute getting indignant when you tell her to get off the street corner. You know, how much money you got?
But and you know what's happening, like Friday made a lot of money, and these films make a lot of money. That's the bell being rung. Stop going to see these films. Because in the end, I believe, as the article said in Ebony of December 1972, the moviegoer will make the final decision. So if we stop spending our $8.50 on films like that, we wait, we look at the previews, or we go on the internet and get some more information about what's this film about before we go spend our money, then you'll stop seeing films like that. But they're making them because we're going to see them.
And if
And
you
Hollywood's
find
gonna
out-
keep doing that as long as we keep spending our $8.
The most effective advertising is word of mouth. If you mess up and go to one of those films, tell your friends not to bow. Don't go. Yes, sir.
This is for both of you. Do you think the movie New Jack City made a bad image on black people?
Yes and no. New Jack City talked about a very real problem in the urban community, which was drug use, drug sale, dope dealers. But in the end, I'm trying to remember the end. I know he was on the rooftop and he killed Alan Payne. And I think the main person, did he die in the end or no? He died in the end. So, I mean, the message it was trying to make in terms of basically you live this life, you die, you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. Right, I mean, so yes and no. Some people would say, for instance, like my panel said last night, we need to see these films because some people are living like that. Some people are experiencing that. So why shouldn't movies be made about drug dealers? Don't we have them in our community? We can't always make films like Deacons for Defense or Rosewood or whatever. We need to tell some real stories. So yes and no.
I want to add a footnote to Deacons of Defense. It was a similar organization operating in Mississippi. They called themselves the Black Panthers. In fact, the Black Panther Party took their name from these individuals. Most of them were veterans. And they decided that after the three voter registration people got killed, Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney, that they were going to protect them. So they started patrolling armed, and they put out the word. But the next time somebody attacks one of these voter registrations, they were going to retaliate. After that, there was never another incident. Never another incident. They would have 4 or 5 armed persons in the car following along behind voter registration couple, traveling 2s and 3s, and another armed person in that car. And they never had another violent incident against them. You cannot overestimate the sheer cowardice the whites have in regard to us. They are frightened of us, physically, spiritually, and mentally. And understand that, because if you provoke their fear, you can die.
Exactly.
Learn how to use it. Yes.
Okay, I've been gathering, a lot of the information that y'all was feeding off to us. And you say how the white people are scared of us, but I believe that they feed off us, like as you say, we gotta, do what they want us to do and feed to our black people. But if we constantly do what they want us to do, they feeding off how we live. And for example, like how they making these new trucks and these new cars, they making that for us because they see that we going to buy these things. So I wouldn't believe in, doing for them and then going back to our family, because that's being, that's dumb to me.
Look, you gotta make a living. The only answer to that is to develop an economy where you don't have to work for white folks.
Right.
Okay? If you go into business for yourself, you're working for yourself. Nobody, white or black, can tell you what to do. You can not only employ yourself, you can employ other black people.
That's right.
Okay? So that ought to be your goal. To work yourself out of a job as this sister did. She worked for white folks until she got to the point where she could work for herself and the community. Until that time, most of you are going to have to go down there and punch that clock 40 hours a week, working for people who hate you. That ain't no easy gig. Yes, Greg.
This question is for both of you, but more specifically this young lady right here. I wanted to know why, in your opinion, do you think movies such as Jackass or South Park hit the box at all?
Because of MTV. MTV is a network that is owned by Viacom, and Viacom has some influence in the movie industry in terms of what can get made and what can't get made. And mostly because, yeah, they acquired BET. They own a lot of advertisement agencies you see. I don't know if you've noticed on the billboards around here, recently they've been purchased by Viacom. So you'll see Viacom underneath. So you might want to investigate that company. But mostly because of MTV. They were successful shows on MTV, and they said, let's make a film. Let's make a film about it. So they did that. And you could have 20 other films by black filmmakers or by Hispanic filmmakers or whatever that are 15 times better than that. But it doesn't matter. Those two concepts are on MTV, owned by Viacom. Viacom wants to make a film about it, so they back their own people.
Yes, sister.
This is a little bit about the movies because when Denzel Washington and Halle Berry won the Oscars for their movies, like she won for Swordfish and Monsters Ball, and Denzel won for Training Day. And I thought that they should have won for different movies, like Denzel should have won for Malcolm X or one of his other great movies, but I believe that because he was playing a bad cop in Training Day, a cop that was, selling drugs and, killing people, and he kind of, it was like setting a bad image about black people, but yet he won an Oscar for playing the bad role when he couldn't win an Oscar for playing the good role. And I wanted to know if you agree that he should have probably, that both of them, because Halle Berry, to my knowledge, she got naked in the movie. And the movie wasn't even that good because I watched it and I really did not enjoy it. And I believe that that's the only reason she won. And she did movies like Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, which I really enjoyed, that I taped off of HBO. And that's another one of those movies that couldn't get into theaters. And I believe that it should have been in theaters because I would have wanted to see it numerous times.
Well, a little known fact is that the NAACP, Hollywood Beverly Hills chapter, have been offering awards now for more than 20 years. And black people ought to know about it. They call it the Image Award because it's designed to reward those films who project the best image of black people. Ivan Dixon and I got an Image Award in 1974 for the Spook Who Sat by the door. But even within that context, there were people on the selection board who were upset about the fact that the film dealt with an armed revolution against white America. So the ambivalence about that film still exists to this day within the black community. Don't get the idea that I'm unanimously popular, particularly among middle-class blacks, or that my film or my book is. Educated middle-class blacks are the most confused people on the planet. Many of them don't know who they are, or why they are, or where they are. These are the people who respond to the bill.
Just a question, well, I guess for both of you, I wanted to know if you guys were agreeing with the controversy over the movie Barbershop.
I can't comment. I've never seen the movie.
The controversy with Barbershop.
I know about the
okay.
controversy. Cedric, in his role, criticized a number of civil rights heroes. Well, you don't kill the messenger, you kill the person who wrote the message. The person ought to be castigated and vilified was the man who wrote those lines, and the director who shot it, and produced it. One of the producers is George Tillman, black, Chicago one out of Columbia College. They backed the man who wrote it. I don't even know what his name is. Who wrote and directed it.
The Ice Cube movie, but I don't know who directed it.
The guy based off of what
I'm not sure.
He criticized Rosa Parks, and Jesse Jackson, and Martin Luther King. I don't believe in censorship. I've been censored too often. You respond to that kind of stuff, not by trying to ban it. Jesse Jackson suggested it be taken out of the theater. That's absurd. When you hear something you don't like, you respond to it, and you criticize it. But you don't try to shut people up before they say it. So your reaction is negative, and properly negative. Those kind of comments are totally out of the box. Particularly for a person like Rosa Parks. It's absurd.
I agree.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about film, when I was growing up, we always watched films from Spike Lee, and lately I've been noticing a little difference in what I want to know what's going on with Spike Lee. Is it because of the movie Bamboozled that he's like flipped the script, so to say, these days?
Are you referring to 25th Hour? Are you referring to that film, or which one of his?
Anything after Bamboozled.
Okay.
And the fact that people say he's only going to the white roles. He's only trying to make white movies nowadays.
Well, 25th Hour, you could say, yes, that was a white movie. That's the characters that were in it. But the film was about a white drug dealer and Russian drug dealers. And it ends with the guy being driven to jail by his father. So that's really what that whole movie was about. So I wouldn't say necessarily that Spike is selling out or anything like that. But I do think that there's been some tremendous amount of pressure on him from Hollywood and from black people.
That's right.
To start making films that are more diverse in terms of represented of all nationalities. This was the first time he ever had a white actor starring in one of his films. So according to Hollywood, it was like, it's about time. Because from their perspective, that was black racism. He was being a racist. Because he hadn't done it.
That's the whole thing about that. You
It
have
was
to
on
see
the
where
Bamboozled was
it's
like
always
that, though.
okay for us. It's okay for us, for Steven Spielberg and other white directors, to make these stories about us, the man who did Beloved. But
Or Michael Mann, who did Ali.
right, but black directors that are supposed to stay in your corner.
Right.
And not be part of the broader market where more of the money is as a director. And not saying that our directors shouldn't tell our stories, but we can't say that it's okay for other people to tell our stories, but it's not okay for our directors to tell stories of other people in the world as well. That we can't do that to each other. And so we have to be careful about saying whether or not somebody is sold out or whether they're just being an artist.
He was also criticized for that film because it was about a white man who was a drug dealer. And it's also like Zora Neale Hurston in the Harlem Renaissance, and she has a novel that it's about white characters, but she was criticized about that book, and she said, well, why can't I do this? Because I'm a writer, and to show you how skilled I am at my craft, I can write about other things beyond just this being black.
James Baldwin's first novel, Giovanni's Room, had no blacks in it. I'd love to do a film about white folks to show how done they are. You know, Spike is under tremendous pressure. He's undoubtedly one of the finest directors anywhere in the world. I have some problems with his politics, I'm not serious. I was supremely disappointed in Malcolm X. But I got to give the brother his due. I mean, as a director, he's incredible, and he's improved tremendously, both as a writer and a director of talent. I mean, he was always technically proficient, but many of his early movies were uneven in terms of the writing and the characterization. And at first, he didn't work well with bringing performances out in his actors. he's improved tremendously in all those areas since that time. You have to understand that he has to make films that don't offend the people, the white people who put up the money, but yet are black enough to attract a black audience. That's a tightrope.
That's right.
I do not envy him. Okay. One of the advantages of being an outsider is that I don't even have the remotest temptation to do anything other than what I feel like doing. Okay? I can write exactly the way I want to write, and he can either take it or leave it. But I wonder what it would be like if I got in the Spike's position. You know, I wonder what it would be like. I don't envy the man when he comes up with a concept for a film, and he's got to get it past a bunch of white bigots. That ain't no easy gig. As far as black racism is concerned, I wrote a short poem. Black folks, white folks calling black folks racist is like the pot calling the kettle white.
What I'm talking about.
Could you speak on the distinction or similarities, or if there are any, between culture, black culture, and street culture? Because I feel like, I mean, just me with myself, I went to Morehouse, and you know, I saw kids who came from upper middle class homes who felt, I think there's a transitional period that's going on in our culture right now where instead of becoming knowledgeable in black culture and your history, you become knowledgeable in street culture. So you can come from a middle class background and then end up selling drugs in college now because you want to be a part of the street culture. And I see that as being very rampant in the African American community, especially coming from suburban black kids to trying to be acceptable in the mainstream image of what being black is. So I was wondering if that is, if you could speak on that, even in film or just in general in society.
Well, the irony is that many of the rappers who pretend to be streetwise come from comfortable middle-class homes. But Daddy didn't grow up on the street.
That's right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Or even in New York, he was in New Jersey.
Tupac didn't grow up on the street. In fact, I can't think of any of them who did. Cool J didn't grow up on the street. So they've created a myth that they don't even understand. Okay? And my guess is most street people laugh at the posing that they do. And after all, who buys their records? 85% of the records are bought by middle-class whites. Okay? That's the audience.
That's right. And it's the image of people and the
85% of
brainwashing we
all
talk about.
hip-hop and rap records are bought by whites.
That's right.
Y'all don't buy them. Y'all be bootlegging.
How popular is this stuff among us? How many of us go for the scam, and how many of us take it for what it is, a scam? So I don't think that's dangerous. Black people are a lot smarter than people give us credit for. And we know a scam when we see it.
One of the things that Sean Combs and these guys, these rapper guys, I can't remember all their names, but one of the things that I think I like about what they're doing, because my feelings are mixed, is that they're creating industries. They're taking their money that they're making from white people buying their albums, and they're starting new industries in clothing and restaurant and film. They're hiring a lot of their own people to run these companies. So I like that, but then again, it's new, and I want to see where they take it and what they actually do with it, and if it's inclusive to all black people and good for all black people, or is it exclusive? It's mostly just for their own, self-indulgence. I'm interested in seeing that. The jury, for me, is still out when it comes to the new age rappers and Rockaware and Sean John and all these things that they're doing. It's still out. But I'm happy for the brothers. I mean, I want them to be successful. Why not? I think it's high time. Sean Combs, he has a clothing line, Sean John, that sold more clothing and sales than any other designer for last year, 2002. That's powerful. It's a lot of money. He
Don't
sold more than
forget-
Gucci, more than all these. I mean, you know, and this is a black man. I'm very happy for that brother. You know what I'm saying? In his jogging suits and jeans and sweaters, and I've seen his clothing line, suede pants, and you know, so good for him. But what is he gonna do with that money? So the jury's still out for me.
Most of you are too young to know it, but the first rap artists were dealing with some very positive thinkers. They were politically oriented.
Right.
They dealt with the problems of the hood. I'm talking about people like Ice Cube, Public Enemy, Tupac Shakur, and others. But it wasn't until the whites who controlled the industry discovered that the negativity that we're now inundated with was set. And all of a sudden, the positive rap disappeared. And we wound up with the kind of garbage we got today.
We make hip hop, but they own hip hop. That's important what Sam just said. They own hip hop. We do not own hip hop. We think we own it. We do not own hip hop. We do not own the distribution companies and the record stores and the studios where hip hop is being made. Slowly, hip hop artists like Master P and some others are saying, wait a minute. They're looking at the numbers and saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to own the masters to my music, have my own studio. Then I'll negotiate a deal with a distributor and do it that way. But those are far and few in between. Master P, there was an article on him along with some others in BET. Which talks about that. So he's kind of like a pioneer. A lot of people didn't know that. But yeah, we make hip hop, but we don't own hip hop.
You see how we keep coming back to the same thing over and over again? If anything positive is going to happen for black people, we have to do it ourselves.
That's right.
We have to do it ourselves. We have to control
everything.
We have to control our culture as well as produce it. Charlie Mingus said years ago, famous jazz musician, talked to a white boy. He said, "We make the music, you own it." But it's time that has to be changed around. Glenn, do you have something to say?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments on some of the things I've heard. What the sister was asking back here about going to war with Iraq. Malcolm said the way you identify the house Negro as opposed to the field Negro is that through identification with we. When we talk about the United States going to war, we don't include ourselves in it by saying we. So we have to worry about our inclusion when we talk about how we relate to the United States. Also, and brother, I think, talked about some of the movie concepts that are out here that seem to be not in the vein of something that deals with the imagination, but we have, like Sam was saying, many writers who deal with those type of concepts, and then a lot of the African writers like Amos Tutuola's My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, which is like a Nigerian epic, you know, that has so many different type of concepts that you would look as one of those type of movies like The Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or something like that. And the sister, I think, was mentioning about Wesley Snipes and the movie about Dr. Ben. He did the movie with Dr. Clark, and I think the movie with Dr. Ben is finished. But I think where he's having most of his difficulty is that he's trying to produce Hannibal in 2,000 seasons. And that's where he's getting a lot of his controversy with Amon-Ra Films in Hollywood because of the epic proportions that he's trying to push with getting these two films to come to fruition. And the barbershop controversy, I look at it, I saw the film and I look at it, and the problem is, even with the silly films that we have, is that we don't have enough good films to look at to be able to say these are good. You can make some stupid films. They can be a Martin Lord if we had epic films and films that are good and that propose good images and things like that. A few silly films don't make any difference, and that's the difference because white folks make stupid films. As a matter of fact, all of them are stupid, but they make stupid films. But they have the things. They have the things that to oppose and offset that. And the thing about it in barbershop is that yes, he made the comments about Rosa Parks, but he was in the barbershop, and the people in the barbershop came up to oppose that. And that's the thing that happened. People can have their opinion. They can say Rosa Parks didn't do anything, but the people in the barbershop themselves came up and said, well, look, you can't say that about Rosa Parks, so and so and so and so. And kind of offset what he was saying by defending Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and, well, just, you know, but by defending them in the barbershop. And I think that it shouldn't be banned because that's what certain people feel. But the thing is that they were defended in the barbershop and didn't have to be defended by going through this big tirade outside because they were already defended in the barbershop when he made the comment. You know, so it's a lot of factors dealing with film and actors and what the things they have to go through. You know, because I've been with certain groups and actors and things like that doing bodyguard work, and I know some of the things. I know Wesley, and I, you know, work with different people and stuff like that, and I know some of the things that they try to do. See, certain things actors, you know, get caught up into. If I do this, later on they'll let me do that. You know, like the dress thing. You know, with Wesley with Tu Wong Fu. Okay, you want to do Blade, you do Tu Wong Fu. You know. And it seems like every black actor, male in the industry has been in a dress or had to do a drag movie to keep going, you know, except for, I think the only one who hadn't done it is Denzel and Bill Cosby. He wasn't in drag, but he was pregnant. But he was pregnant. So all of them, yeah, maybe Lawrence Fishburne. But the thing is that when they go to do this, even people like Puff Daddy and even the people like the basketball players and Oprah and people like this, they're put into a box with that supposed money they have. There's only certain things they can do. And Spencer Haywood talked about this probably more than anybody else in dealing with the NBA money and all that kind of stuff. There's only certain things you can do with that money or they will destroy you. You can't, see Puff, he can open up a clothing line or a restaurant and that's safe and okay. But if he starts talking anything political, if he starts talking about giving Sam, you know, $30 million to do a film, then Puff Daddy be locked up in probably 15 to 20 minutes.
That's
because you're boxed into with that money. You can't. There's certain things that you can't do. I don't care how much they say Michael Jordan has. Michael Jordan can't do nothing with that money other than open up a restaurant. He can donate a couple of dollars to the charity, but that money is for them and their family and to perpetuate this system. But anytime they try to oppose or give anything that's going to make a real dent in our lives as far as the media is concerned, as far as imagery is concerned, they'll be destroyed immediately. So they can do clothing.
Well, that's happening now. In New York, there's a task force that's been reported just recently on the news that are going after targeting hip-hop artists in New York. So they're following them around, they're taking pictures. If they're able to pin anything on their entourage in terms of if they have any illicit drugs or whatever they're doing that might be illegal, they're trying to tie it back in to the artist. So this is something that's happening right now. And I was waiting for it. I knew it was going to happen pretty soon because these guys are starting to make in the billions. I mean, Rocawear made $300 million from their clothing line last year. $300 million in 1 year? And then Damon Dash said, oh, that's nothing. You know, our goal is $1 billion. We're going to reach that $1 billion in 03 with some of the things we're doing. So they got to shut these guys down. $1 billion? That's what our casinos made last year off of us, $1 billion. Yeah, that kind of money in black hands. In 1 year, Detroit casinos made $1 billion.
Let me say this. I met Brother Mason at the Grown Books literary conference last year. He asked me to look at one of his scripts. I read it and gave him comments. Now he's going to weight me down with about 6 more. But you see, he's not unique. Any number of young filmmakers have approached me, okay, for the same thing. I don't volunteer. They gotta volunteer. They gotta come to me. You know, the guru didn't sit on the mountain by accident. He figured anybody who wanted to work hard enough to get up there was worth talking to. Okay, so they gotta come looking for me. And I've been in touch with about 6 young filmmakers, most of them in Chicago. That's where I live. And I tell them, you want me to look at a script, you bring a 6-pack of Heinekens back. I'll check it out. You know. So that's what they do. They drop it off, and I call them and say it's ready, and they come back, and I said, you can help me drink the beer. You know. And I respond to it. So I know that these young bloods are writing positive scripts. The problem is getting out there. Okay? So to assume that because you don't see it, it's not there, is a misnomer. And we have to understand that it's more about greed than race. Because as you pointed out, it's only by accident that white films have any meaningful content. And this brother talked about the dumbing down of American society. The media is all involved in that. They don't want the populace to think. If they did, there'd be as much opposition to this war as there is in Europe. Now, why is there opposition in Europe but not here? Because in Europe, the media, even when it's government-owned, insists on showing both sides of the picture. You don't get that here in regard to this war. Every aspect of media, magazines, motion pictures. Have you noticed how many war movies you've seen on television nowadays? Huh?
And come to the theaters.
Sister Adia has had her hand up quite a bit.
The American populace is not governed, it's ruled. Okay? The difference between being governed and ruled is when you rule, the government doesn't have to pay any attention to your opinions. They can do whatever they want to do and tell you why they've done it. But when you're governed, you have to have enough information to respond to what's going on. And in Europe, they're governed. In America, we're ruled. And as I said to Brother Mason, you know, the only thing that's different about Homeland Security and all of the violations of the Constitution that go with that in the name of protection is that we're the only people who are not going to be impacted by that. We've been living as a police state for decades. It's the Arabs who are the present target, and then they're going to move out like ripples in the stream until everybody who doesn't fit into the category that they want is going to be jacked up just like we've been jacked up. Driving while black is going to be driving while Arab, and driving while a cop had a fight with his wife last night. Everybody's going to be subject to this kind of thing.
I think people should see the gangs in New York.
Yeah.
Because the different ethnic groups warred against each other, but their final rap was on the black population of New York. And you need to see that. You need to see that scene. And it's the first time that a movie has been made about the immigrants coming to the United States, where they even showed black people existed and were free along the eastern coast. And I think it's significant for us to see it so that we understand these things that have been said, that the fear is against us and what we do, and the wrath and the anger is always ultimately vented against us. And at some point, we get to understand that we need to have some line of defense. We've been defenseless all this time, except for individuals who turn around and fight back. But we can't be defenseless forever. And I think our strength is if we can get these movies out that show that we have a history of victory and accomplishment,
That's right.
then the whole, our whole mentality of us, they not only fear us, but we fear them.
Yeah.
And Kwame Nkrumah said the secret to life is to have no fear. And those who've been the bravest, they seem to survive a long time. They're fearless. I mean, it's just, what do you have to lose in defense of your own people, your self-love?
Got that right. I'm 72 and I'm shooting for 100.
You got a young lady.
But you mentioned something.
Please let this sister ask her question.
Okay, Adia, I want you to ask your question, but we have maybe 5 more minutes, okay?
This is to the lady. I want to know, how did you feel about Scream 2 in Chicago, the movie?
I didn't go see either because I did my research.
What was it?
Scream 2 in Chicago. I did my research. I'm aware of what Chicago's about. Some white women who killed their husbands or whoever they were having an affair with or whatever. Not interested, not for me. Scream 2, not interested. A lot of sequels are crap. They made some money off the first, so they're just trying to milk the bone. You know what I'm saying? So no, didn't see either. I'm picky when it comes to film. I will not spend my money on something that is not good for me psychologically or otherwise. So if it comes on television and I happen to be writing or reading a book and want to take a break or something, and just look at some imagery, then maybe. But I'm not going to spend my money on that. One of the things I wanted to say to the young lady who talked about Monster Ball, and you said first initially Swordfish. Well, I can see why you say that because in Swordfish, remember, she was paid $100,000 or whatever. A big deal was made about her being topless in that film. So once they saw, oh, we can buy Hallie, you know, they said, well, how about Monster Ball? Monster Ball is an independent film, however. She wasn't paid a lot of money up front to do that film. She made her money on the cutting end, on the back end, with DVD sales and any other kind of paraphernalia. So she has ownership in that movie. So in the end, she's going to make probably way more if she had said, I want $20 million for it. She's going to make way more than that. But that movie, to me, in terms of her winning the Oscar, to me, Hollywood was saying, it was a movie about biracial people. In fact, she said in one of her interviews